Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Show. I hope you're all doing well and you've had a good week in franchising. This is the show, I'm going to do it, where we get under the hat of some of the most important topics in franchising. And it's a live show. Well, it's live if it's April 29th at about 5:15 in the UK, 12:15 in bits of America, for about 50 minutes. And each week we take a new topic in franchising and we have a lovely guest. And in fact, today we've got two lovely guests. So the topic that we are talking about today is developing a knowledge sharing mindset. And to talk about that, we have supporter of the show, returning guest, the wonderful Penny Hopkinson. And to join Penny, we have the lovely Amrit from Wolfinch. Penny, Amrit, welcome to the Franchise Show.
Thank you, Harvey. Lovely to be here again.
And likewise.
Excellent. Well, welcome to you both. Perhaps we can start off with a little bit of a sort of an introduction to yourselves, because there are new people here. Let's go ladies first. So Penny, give us, most people know you, but give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself again.
Lovely. Well, first, hello everyone from an exceptionally sunny Stratford-on-Avon, as is the tradition. I work with franchise startups, SMEs and global brands to reimagine their dull, text-heavy operations manuals as engaging, dynamic, knowledge-sharing ecosystems where teams can participate, learn and grow. I'm a regular contributor to Franchise World, the author of Manual Magic, Create the Operations Manual your franchisees need to succeed, the right way round, the definitive book of its type. And in the next few months, I'm really excited because I'm going to launch Manual Magic AI. It's a revolutionary new application that will enable everyone to create SOPs and operations manuals from their intellectual property about 75% quicker and more efficiently with AI, but without losing the human touch.
Wow, that's first of all a fantastic introduction and some very exciting things coming up, which I'm sure we're going to work into our conversation today. Let's do the same now. Amrit, I mean, everybody knows Amrit. If you're in franchising, you know Amrit, but it's so fantastic to have you with us, Amrit. You're a wonderful advocate for our industry and also someone that I've always admired in terms of your knowledge sharing. You're always open to share your knowledge of how you've grown Wolfinch with even what most people would class as your competitors. You seem to class them as your friends, as your colleagues, and you seem just as keen for them to do well in franchising as you. So Amrit, welcome to the Franchise Show, and perhaps you could give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, but also give us a little bit of an explanation as to why you're so keen on sharing that knowledge with everybody as you do.
Thank you very much for that, Harvey. That was a very warm welcome. So I'm Amrit Dhaliwal, the CEO and founder of Wolfinch, which is a home care franchising operation. I started as a franchisee and then have later become a franchisor. So it's been really two halves of my career in franchising. And more recently, I've joined Penny in becoming an author and written a book called Time to Thrive: The Home Care Revolution. And why is that collaborative approach important to me? I think that franchising is a really wonderful asset to our country, and I think that it is on this really wonderful journey. It's really changed my life, and when I look at home care and social care and I look at franchising, actually most franchisors and competitors work as colleagues, I must say. I mean, I don't think I'm alone in that, and it's very kind of you, Harvey, to highlight it. But you know, I've often found if I pick up the phone to one of my competitors and ask a question, they'll actually willingly answer it, which is really quite decent. And I think if we all do that, we improve franchising, we improve the model, we improve the systems, we add more, EBITDA profit to and grow the brand of franchise. That really I'm very passionate about.
No, I love that, and thank you for that fantastic introduction. And it really summarizes exactly what I feel about you. And you talk about picking up the phone to your competitors as if that's a normal thing. And you know what? It is for you, and it is a little bit in franchising, but it's not commonplace in industry, and it should be, because particularly in an industry like yours, where you're in, such an important industry, looking after the people as you do, you all have a passion for that to be done well. So I can see why that knowledge sharing works so well. Penny, before we go back to you, I'd like to welcome a few people who have already joined us. It's always fantastic to have people here live. You really are what makes this show what it is. I always say it, but you're the producers and the directors of this show, because I genuinely don't write anything down. You might call me lazy, but it's because our conversations are whatever you make them. So your comments and your questions about knowledge sharing, that's the direction we're going to take with our conversation. So before we get into that, let's see who's here. We have the fantastic Joe Caruso. It's always great to have Joe with us, all the way from the good old US of A. He's put, hey guys, good to see you all. Well, it's great to see you, Joe. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on collaboration, knowledge sharing. How does it look in America? Are brands talking to one another for the greater good of franchising? Is that something that's commonplace? So please pop in a comment about that, and we can discuss how it's different here to America. And we have Natalia here. Always great to have Natalia with us. Natalia's put, woohoo. Hello, Harvey, Penny, and Amrit. Well, it's great to have you here, Natalia. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. We have a fellow operations manual expert and good friend, of course, of Penny's and us all, Louise Harris. So great to have Louise with us. Hello, so exciting to learn more. We have Tim Morris with us. And Tim's put in a question, actually. So we're going to get to that later on. Tim has put, good evening, franchise friends. Great to be here as usual. Let's have a look. We have got Natalia coming back with, that sounds exciting, Penny. So that's all about your new version of your book and taking AI. And we're going to delve into that in a moment or two. We've got two more people to recognize. Then we've got a longer comment there from Tim, and we're really starting to get into this. So we also have the lovely John Powell here. John's put, everyone knows Amrit. Well, they sure do. But it's always good to have Amrit with us and to hear his views and for him to share a little bit of knowledge with us all. We have the fantastic Nick Pleven. Nick is one of our lovely supporters from eTalent, and he's put, hello friends, glad to be here. Well, we are glad you're here too, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts on knowledge sharing and how we can do more of that in franchising. So let's have a look and start off with this comment here from Tim. Tim's put, love this, Penny. I am a big lover of AI and what it can do, especially as whatever it does today is so much better than a couple of years ago. Imagine what it will do in 5 years' time. Gosh, absolutely. I mean, Penny, explain sort of the process of taking, you've always been about knowledge sharing. This is what it's always been about in terms of how you're changing an ops manual from a boring book to something that's really useful, really interactive. What was the journey like in taking it from that to now this new AI version of it?
Well, it's been a really interesting one because, of course, when I first came in, which was about 1987, all those years ago, and my first real manual was for Lloyd's of London, the corporation, and the really exciting sounding underwriting agents procedures manual. Thank goodness we've come a long way from there. I should think that ended up on either a dusty shelf or propping a door open. But who knows whether it was ever opened. But the turning point really came when I worked with Costa Coffee, and I worked with them over a period of about 3 years. And at that time, there were about 1,500 to 2,000 franchisees, brand partners. And I said to them one day, you know, you've got something like 6 volumes of an operational manual. Could we not try to put it on a CD-ROM? And of course, that started it off. All the manuals were switched to CD-ROMs, and it was much, much easier and much cheaper. And I think we cut our costs by, a massive amount, because all that paper, and of course it wasn't very eco-friendly, was it? And then, of course, we went to digital. So everything was online or on something like SharePoint in the cloud. And then, of course, we've got to intranets, portals, Louise's Ops portal, which does a fabulous job. And talking about collaboration, Louise and I often have a chat, and we're very much, I need to update her on what I'm doing, but now we're right in the center of AI and what it can do. And my worry has always been how long it takes to write a really serious full operations manual. And it's not just franchisors, it's the consultants who get involved in doing it too. And I have worked on this for probably the last 6 months to create something that is easy, very simple, cuts the time down by a massive amount, but does not lose the human touch, because AI cannot think or act as a human in the real sense of it. So it's always a franchisor's complexion to put the finishing touches on any shared knowledge. But as you probably know, I've been looking at how the different learning styles affect how we present knowledge. And with about 30% of the global workforce under 30 and growing, young millennials, Generation Z, and upcoming Alpha won't touch dull text-heavy manuals. So anybody thinking of presenting a really heavy tome, somebody came to me the other day with an 800-page they wanted updating. And I looked at the profile of their franchisees. They were all under 40. And I said, it's going to be a waste of money. No, sorry. If you want to go in that direction, please do. But they're not going to replicate your system faithfully. You need a single source of truth, and you need to have peer-to-peer engagement. And that's really, really hard, because it now means involving your franchisees in creating a manual that is for them and by them, because they're at the coalface. It doesn't matter how many audits, how many visits, we are not actually doing that job. So the concept is to involve them into continuous improvement, offer incentive. Maybe it's an idea of the month, and the team member that has that idea that cuts wastage, accidents, incidents, and helps with employee retention, gets a £100 Amazon voucher. At the conference, there's the idea of the year. So everybody is pulling, and the person who wins idea of the year will get, let's say, £1,000, but their team would get an amount of money to go on the training course of their choice.
I think that's a fantastic idea as well. You know, it's all about trying to motivate people in the right way and trying to make this thing engaging. Amrit, let's move on to you, because we've got a good question that's come in here from Craig. And first of all, let's welcome Craig Garris to the show. Craig, welcome to the Franchise Show. Always good to have you with us. And he's put, knowledge sharing requires the belief that there is enough for all of us. It's a hard change from the past where everything was kept close to the vest. Great comment here, Craig, and I think it's really valid for what I feel that Amrit and Penny and all of us believe about knowledge sharing. What do you make of this one, Amrit?
It's very true, isn't it? I mean, it's you have to first work on yourself before you can start to circulate and share things. I've often found that hard. I think, you know, over the years I've found that difficult. It's something that I've needed to talk to myself about a little bit and do some reflection on. I've always taken the view that I can learn more from people that are 5 years, 10 years ahead of me. And so, you know, often I've had mentors, guides, coaches, etc. And there's almost nobody better than someone that has done exactly the same thing that you're trying to do and is a few steps ahead. If I look at the sector now, you know, I was with Trevor Brocklebank last week. I've got coffee with Ken Deary in a few weeks. I was with Ruth Brown recently, and you know, and people like this that have actually, you know, walked the walk, felt the emotions and done it, and you think, gosh, you know, it's very interesting because there's lots of energy sharing there. So, you know, from my perspective, there is, you know, lived experience that I can learn from, and from their perspective, I'm looking at it in a different way because I've just not been in it for as long, and so we've both got something to sort of gain. It's a value share, and I think the thing that I've often thought is lead from the front. If you want, praise is right in that it's, if you want that to happen, go and find someone and deliver value to them without taking something back, and that will change the relationship. It'll show somebody that you are interested in building a relationship and not just taking from them, and maybe you never get anything back from that, and that's okay as well. And I think it's just keep delivering value, and at some point the universe will deliver it back. Is very much my view. And just a final point on that, I spent a bit of time in the States, and I look at how they operate franchise relationships in between sort of franchisors, and the amount of knowledge sharing and the open door policy that they have is wonderful. It feels infectious and it motivates you, and I think we do have that in the UK, maybe not as overtly, but I really do believe that is starting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you made so many good points, and actually we're going to move on to a comment from Joe in a minute, talking of America, and see what we make of that one. But what I really like about that is that deliver first and not expect anything in return. I think because if you are a franchisor or somebody who's looking to maybe start a franchise business, and you're looking to try and learn how to do it, and you're thinking, I'd really like to reach out to these people who are already doing it, but they're not going to want to talk to me. They're not going to want to, but if you support them first in some way and you give something to them with genuinely no expectation of anything in return, it's a great way to start, rather than just reaching out to ask for something. Reach out to give something. And I think that's a great way to begin that. Let's have a look. Sorry?
And I think that's the thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look at, we've got comments coming up from Louise, from Tim, and we're going to introduce a few more people. But let's have a look here at this one from Joe. It's such a big comment, we're probably going to disappear. I'm going to have to look over the top of this comment. But thank you for your comment. Let's have a look. He's put, here you go, Harvey Tuck. A great way to start. Slightly nervous. With the franchising having been regulated for so long now in the US, franchisors, because of the compliance regime, people to share a great deal on best practices. On the FTC franchise rule for selling of franchises here, I would say that regulation has made it an unlikely collaborations without it. Okay. Would you never expect home service franchise brand to talk with a capital intensive QSR brand, but compliance aligns their interest to a common objective? It's a really interesting one there about how regulation in the US has perhaps created some commonality between brands that aren't connected in what they do. What do you make of that one? We'll start with you, Penny. How do you feel about this comment?
I think that any way that you can share that knowledge must be good. We always learn from something new from other people, other industries, other sectors. We always learn something. I mean, that's really how I've built my career. From when I was a journalist in trade and tech. I started on hospital building and engineering and health service hygiene. Then 2 years later, print room and printing equipment and materials, then occupational safety and health, and so on and so forth. And it's, if you're curious, if you have a thirst for knowledge, a thirst for self-improvement, I think being open to listening to how other people do things, you may not agree with them, but somewhere along the line, you might just find that their words of wisdom slot in beautifully.
I love that. I love the fact that you mentioned the word there, curious, be curious. The main reason I started this was being curious, wanting to absorb everything around me, hopefully deliver some value, most of it coming from the lovely people that were on this with me. But it's a wonderful attitude to be curious, to have a thirst for knowledge, to be open with what you give. And then people want to be more open with what they want to give back to you. And like Amrit said, that might not be immediate, but it will be delivered back in some way, I'm sure. Amrit, on this comment, I was interested to hear your thoughts. I know you support and collaborate within your own sector of care. Do you often seek advice or give advice outside your own industry to I don't know, let's say a QSR franchisor? Do you speak to them, or is it mostly with your own sector?
I have friends across sector, and actually both here and in the US. And one of the things I find is that our sector really isn't the end product that we deliver. It is franchising. And the problems that I'm having are the same problems that someone's having in sort of food and beverage and grass care, in anything. A hair salon franchisor has the same issues I have, because actually franchising is the product. Separately, the end product is care delivery, and that is a different business, and we have different issues there. And at that point, on the ground level with the end user, their different problems. So I think there is so much to give and learn, because really franchising is very much about hearts and minds. It's about building bank accounts of trust, that kind of Dale Carnegie type of stuff. And I think from my perspective, we can do loads of that. It's slightly irrelevant what the end product is. It's really about how to be a good franchisor. So when you think about what Penny does, it's irrelevant whether she's selling it to me and saying you need a good operations manual, Amrit, for home care, or she's selling it to my colleague here in a KFC and saying you need a good operations manual to make those burgers.
Absolutely. I like that, a bank account of trust. I think that's very true, isn't it? Because you make deposits and withdrawals in that situation, and if one is off balance, particularly the withdrawals, it's not going to be but it's a great way to look at it as well if you're a franchisor. It is that. And also I love what you said there about the fact that the sector isn't our business in franchising. Franchising is our business. Franchisees are our business. Of course, especially in your sector as well, it flows right the way through. But the commonality of franchising allows us, particularly in this conversation here, to have that knowledge sharing mindset. I mean, do you think that where we have to develop that, or do you think it's gone like a Maybelline advert, or are we born with it? I'll put that to Penny. Do you think that we need to be taught to share knowledge, or do you think just some people are knowledge sharers? They're open, they're vulnerable, they're just that way. Do you think everyone can be a knowledge sharer?
I think they can be. What I don't think is that it's necessarily a natural evolution, because I think some of it, although, I mean, in franchising, the cornerstone is to share knowledge in one way or another, because the franchisee pays for the know-how. But a lot of franchisors think that they need to take control of that knowledge in how it's presented. And it's all from head office, with very few franchisees involved. And what I would like to see is teams getting involved in the process, which ultimately they're working on day by day, and they are the ones who can improve it.
I love that, and I'm going to pass this across to Amrit now, because it'd be really interesting to get your take on this, Amrit, because I'm going to take this show first of all. I always say that the people that are here in the comments are the producers, are the directors, and they really are. All the questions that are coming up now is what we're talking about. We haven't pre-planned these things. It doesn't come from us. It comes from the people who want to talk about this. And I'm really interested, Amrit, to hear about your view on a franchisee's opinion on the sort of the framework, the model, what goes into that ops manual. Do you take your franchisees into that process? Are they involved? Do they improve it with their knowledge as well?
I've jammed here, but
can you hear? That's
okay. Am I back?
You're all right.
Great. So interestingly, having been a former franchisee myself and having got pilot branches, one of the reasons that we've always kept a pilot branch and we intend to sort of continue to do so is so that we understand the pain on the ground. And I think there was Simon Bartholomew came to one of our conferences and said something wonderful, actually, and it really struck a chord with me. And he said, look, when you come on board, he's talking to our franchise network, and he said, when you come on board, that before you hit that first couple of million in revenue and become super successful, just follow the model. And if you read books like The Wealthy Franchisee, Scott Greenberg, the end thing there is follow the damn model, right? So don't trying to make a new burger with pineapples and whatever. Let's wait and just make the Big Mac as it is, and we follow the model. Once you're super profitable and the business is sustainable, then I think there comes a point where you want to then start to tinker with it and say, work collaboratively with the franchisor on a more kind of meaningful scale, and say, right, okay, let's road test things. Now, as a franchisor, so I think that's the kind of the bigger system change piece. As a franchisor, on a day-to-day basis, what we tend to say is, if we're doing something new, we will pilot it with a few franchisees first, because it's not good enough to say, this feels like a good idea, I'm going to spend your money to test it. We sort of think about it the other way around, to say, well, actually, it feels like a good idea. Now we're going to road test it, and work with 4 or 5 franchisees, invariably pick up the cost of it ourselves, and actually check whether the thing works, and road test it, come back with data, and then I think franchisees absolutely changes, because as Penny said, they are the ones on them, not you. And so it's super important to always behave as though you've got a franchisee in the room when you are going through and having those management meetings, and whether it's putting a miniature chair in the room or actually leaving one empty and saying that's where the franchisee is, and let's speak as though we have the franchise network sitting in the room with us. It's really one of the things for me as a former franchisee I take really personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the idea of, when you test something, you're testing it with the idea that there's a franchisee in the room, whether there is or whether there isn't. It's the perspective of thinking about it from the point of view of a franchisee that I think is wonderful and really valid. If you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are talking all about developing a knowledge sharing mindset. And we have the lovely Penny Hopkinson and Amrit as well from Wolfinch to talk about that. So it's been a great conversation so far. We've got some lovely comments coming in. If you are here, or if you're looking at this in the future, pop a comment in and we will get to that. This is a conversation that is driven by you. Let's have a look here. We've got a good one here from Tim. We've got another comment coming up from Craig, and a couple coming up from Simon Wise. So let's have a look at this one. Amrit, I know you do have to go today. What sort of time do you have to go, just so that we know?
I need to head off in about 2 minutes. I've got a very interesting reception at a Norwegian embassy regarding home care, which,
Norwegian embassy. It sounds like there will be Ferrero Rocher.
I feel like that. That's what my wife said, So she's like, this is actually the advert.
Like the triangle shape. That's what I've got in my mind.
If it's okay, I will hop off. And thank you so much for the invitation. And always lovely to share a screen with yourself, both Harvey and Penny.
It's been a pleasure to have you with us, and have a lovely evening, and we will see you again soon, Amrit.
Thank you, and thank you to the audience. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheerio. Penny, so let's have a little look at this one. So this one's from Tim. Tim's put, one of the challenges with operations manual or knowledge sharing platforms is being able to find the information franchisees or their teams are looking for. Will your AI solution make it easy for franchisees to access a quality response or information based on an input question? Great question, Tim. What do you make of this one, Penny?
Well, yes, that's very interesting. And it is, again, one of the challenges. You can actually turn whatever you've created in the operations manual into a QR code, so that they can instantly access it at the point of need with their smartphone. So that's one way. The other way is, I have asked my wizard, which is an AI agent who will answer any question about the operations manual. So you can do exactly the same thing and interrogate your operations manual, and it will come back with, mine is geared You can ask it for a complicated answer, or now present it to me as if I were a 5-year-old.
For me. Yeah.
Me.
That's really interesting. So the source of course of all of this information is tightly controlled, because the information that the AI program is pulling from is the ops manual and our other documents that are put into it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So you created the ops manual, and you will link it to whatever platform you use, whether it's SharePoint if you're starting up, a portal intranet, LMS, or a dynamic knowledge sharing platform where you can upload bite-sized snippets of video to make a procedure. So it is perfectly feasible to interrogate the system.
That's great. And that was a fantastic question, Tim. Thanks for putting that one up. We're going to go, we've got a question from Craig. We've got a couple of questions coming up from Simon. And let's also welcome to the show, we have somebody new. So let's welcome Sonish. Some interesting takeaways here. Well, thank you, Sonish. Great to have you with us. Please pop in a comment or a question, and interested to hear your thoughts. So let's have a look here. We've got a question from Craig. It's the exact reasoning behind the Go Giver. I think is that Bob Berg?
Yes, it is. Yes.
You need to always be giving without expectation and always willing to give selflessly. I love that. And it's such a great attitude to have in knowledge sharing, isn't it? That's what knowledge sharing is, isn't it?
It is. And I was privileged to meet Bob Berg in a private mastermind last year and talk to him one-to-one. He's an amazing man.
He is. And that having that attitude of giving is just really important when we are looking at knowledge sharing. Let's have a look at a question here from Simon. I spent most of my time during lockdown tuning in to some regular USA franchise podcasts and live streams. It was a great way to see what was ahead of the curve for us here in the UK. I mean, video, Penny. This is a way to get interactive, isn't it? You know, you were talking there about under 30s. Yeah. I've got this real passion of getting younger people into franchising, and to make the model work when you take a different demographic, and when you take that under 30s demographic, we've got to change up these text-heavy documents. And youngsters are used to using AI in their day-to-day lives now, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I mean, they are the YouTube, Instagram, TikTok generation. Upcoming alpha, they are the digital natives. They will not have been brought up reading a manual. They will view something, capture the QR code, and absolutely they're up to the minute. But there is also another aspect in that young people join an employer that shares their values. They want to feel valued, they want to feel engaged, they want to contribute, and they want to make their contribution to the success of the business. And that's the way you get them to stay.
Unknown caller.
Sorry, unknown caller. Who knows? Probably selling me something. Yes,
that's good. That proves it's live, you see.
His dog hasn't barked yet. So now you're looking at peer-to-peer engagement, and you're looking at bottom up, not top down. I'm just about to produce a newsletter, my monthly newsletter, which is talking all about this. and how to support the newer generations in knowledge sharing.
It's so important that as franchisors, if you're a franchisor listening to this, or if you're a prospective franchisee listening to this, you know, how franchising is built on the fact that you've got a tried and tested model, you're replicating that, you're offering up those tools, that toolkit to somebody to be able to repeat that. Amrit, before he left there, was just talking about follow the model, you know, and following the model is all very well, but how individuals do that depends on that demographic. It depends on that individual, on their way of doing things, doesn't it?
And we've got up to 5 generations under one workplace now, which is the first time ever. And most of them have got different learning styles, may have different learning abilities. So we have to cater for them. I mean, if you ignore the under 30s, you're ignoring 30% of the global workforce.
Absolutely. You know, hopefully our franchisees will be getting younger. Well, they will, if I've got something to do with it. So we will be having lots of young franchisees in the industry, and we still have lots of young people in employment. And we've got to make sure that all of our procedures are going to appeal. Let's have a look here. Let's put a quick one up from Craig. He put, I met him at a lunch here in South Florida. He's an amazing person. Well, I'm hearing very good things about Bob Berg. I have been, I think I've been on a podcast with Bob Berg. My good friend Don Cohen knows Bob Berg pretty well. So maybe we'll have to get him on this at some point.
Oh, that would be good.
Let's have a look. We have a comment here from Simon. And what was hot? Oh, this is a continuation of his last message. Ahead of the curve for the US and here in the UK. And what was hot then? Multi-unit franchisees. Impact of private equity investment, all coming into play right here now in the UK. I mean, look, this is an interesting one, isn't it? You know, knowledge sharing from what Amrit spoke about earlier was that he used to speak to people that were a bit further ahead of the game than he was, people that had been in his business or the business of franchising longer. Well, you know, the US has been in franchising longer than the UK, and therefore the knowledge sharing across the pond, we can take some of the good that's happening there, some of the new things that are happening there, and incorporate that into our franchise businesses.
This is why I'm a member of 2 large networks in the US, because they are ahead of the curve and you can always learn something. Last year I was on 25 podcasts as a guest. This year I'm aiming for 50. And I learn from all the ones that I'm on in the States, because they've all got this real entrepreneurial spirit. They are very much more open than we are over here.
Okay.
It's a curious thing, and I really do enjoy my conversations and my in some cases collaboration with people who have got this very fresh perspective.
Yeah, a fresh perspective is very interesting on it. I think, you know, my experiences of dipping in, I mean, Joe Caruso, who was here at the beginning, may still be here listening, but Joe, I happened upon it was an audio, a live audio all about franchising. Some great guests, some great conversations, but exactly as you said there, very open with how that model works, very intense and in-depth questioning of some of these franchisors, which were very happy on an open platform like that to share it. So, you know, that's a great thing, you know, for us to be able to share that and, you know, and grow our knowledge together, isn't it?
I find it very refreshing.
It is. It is.
And
There's a lot of businesses here in the UK that don't, or historically don't.
I think that there is something in the British psyche. We are much more reserved. And perhaps that's why we don't share our knowledge quite so freely.
Yes, that's really interesting to see how culture impacts knowledge sharing. It'd be very interesting to see how, when you do things for different operators around the world, how that cultural aspect comes into play. That's a really interesting one. Can the AI software deal with cultural differences? Can you say, how do we make this ops manual work better in this region as opposed to this region? Is it got to that point yet, or is that?
Yes, it does have that reasoning capacity, but like all things with AI, they need to be checked because occasionally they hallucinate. That's a technical term, apparently. It's a technical term for getting it wrong and making things up. But if it's working on your intellectual property, so that is information that is specific to a franchise, then it shouldn't make anything up, but it can bring in its own perspective and reasoning. The ChatGPT is becoming more and more sophisticated, frighteningly so.
Yes, but it's a tool of which we need to use and value and appreciate and use in the right way. I love that.
I mean, I have just one sort of little take on that, and that AI can't replace your wisdom, but it can help you access it with less noise, more space, and increasingly now deeper trust. It's not an end of creating or creation, but it's an evolution.
Yes, I think we need to quote that one. I like that. Well, we have come to the end of the first part of today's show. Let's very quickly put a couple more comments up. Joe's put Penny Hopkinson and Harvey Tuck. I am rarely referenced as refreshing.
Joe, you are absolutely refreshing.
That's it. Look, we are going to now come. We have got more questions. What we will do is Penny can look at the comments afterwards, so you can always go back, answer them in the chat, start those conversations, and we will continue this conversation about knowledge sharing. But this is now the part of the show where I disappear from your screen for a moment, because it's now illegal for me to not be wearing a hat in public. So I now have this beauty on. And this part of the show is, of course, sponsored by PJ Murphy and Son, bespoke British hatters. And this is, of course, the lovely Paul Murphy from Flip Out fame, but he's also a hatter. So if you'd like a lovely hat like this one, please reach out to Paul. Now, this is also the part of the show where we stop talking about knowledge sharing and we stop talking about franchising. And we find out a little bit about Penny, but also Penny's been very good to answer all of these questions. So I'm going to give Penny the opportunity to ask me any question she likes. First of all, Penny, let's ask you one more question. So have you got a claim to fame, someone famous you've met, an interesting hobby, something we don't know about Penny, but not about franchising? Anything, let us know.
Right. Somebody famous.
Oh, okay. Let's go.
When I was a young journalist, I was working freelance nursery world, not plants, but children. And I was sent out to interview Hayley Mills,
Okay.
the great Sir John Mills, when she had her first baby. And I went over there with a little teddy bear. She was very gracious, and she said it was the first teddy bear that her little son had got. and we talked for about 2 hours. She was absolutely marvelous.
Oh, yeah.
And that ended up by being my first world exclusive.
Oh, fantastic. Amazing. Well, that's fantastic. Love it. Well, you now get to get your own back on me. So you can ask me any question you like. And I haven't even pre-planned this.
Okay, Harvey, what is your hobby?
What is my hobby? Well, it's not going to be that exciting unless you love golf, but my hobby is golf. I love golf. I'll tell you what I will say, and this is not really answering your question, but my music tastes, not everybody knows. And I enjoy listening to music, but I enjoy listening to heavy metal music. So not many people know that about me. Metallica is one of my favorites. So I think maybe it's a vent. But yes, golf, I suppose, is my hobby. I'm going to be going off to play golf in Portugal in a week or so's time, defending my crown as well. So
Dare I ask your handicap?
it's quite high. It's 25. I mean, 5.
Oh,
I play for fun, and I love playing with my son as well. We often play
great.
together as well. So
Absolutely great.
there you go. So we have come to the end of another episode of the Franchise Show. I'd love to thank our wonderful community. You really are what makes this special. So thank you for taking your time this evening, and in the future to watch this. Please come back. Please pop in comments, get involved. You are really what makes this special. So thank you to you. And I'd like to thank the wonderful Penny for not only being here tonight, but for supporting us for so long. It's a real pleasure to be alongside you on your journey. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, next week, next Tuesday, so this is going to be the 6th of May. It's going to be a bit of a surprise, possibly, because I'm not sure if this one's going to happen, but we are probably going to be talking about the World Franchise Show. And we will probably have somebody, possibly from the IFA, to talk about that show that's going to be happening in Miami. So that'll be a very exciting one. And if we don't talk about that, we're talking about something else fun in franchising. So please join us next Tuesday, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST for that one. And until next time, take very good care. Cheerio.